Picture this. You're 43 years old. You meditate almost daily. You've journaled for years, maybe sat in an ayahuasca ceremony or two. You've had real spiritual experiences, and just between the two of us, you know you're more conscious than most people. And yet, when your partner asks you what you need in the relationship, you freeze. You literally can't identify it, let alone say it out loud. Then you get resentful when they don't magically know. You blame them for not being intuitive enough, not tuned in enough, not caring enough. Sound familiar? Or maybe it's money. You've done abundance meditations. You understand that money is energy. Maybe you've even meditated to my Wealth Aura Boost audio spell, and it feels good. You're keeping your money vibration high. But every time you have to set your rates or negotiate your salary, your chest or maybe your gut tightens. You undercharge, you avoid the conversation entirely, and then maybe you spiritualize it. After all, money isn't everything, and I'm not materialistic. What's actually happening is this. You're a spiritual adult running on a child's emotional operating system. You're navigating a complex adult life with the default settings you absorbed before you were 8 years old. This isn't because you're broken or in any way unusual. It's because your system was never upgraded. And no amount of meditation is going to fix that. So let's get uncomfortable for a second. A lot of what's packaged as spiritual practice, as it's often taught and consumed, is sophisticated procrastination. It's a way of avoiding the actual work of growing up. But wait a minute, I hear you saying, Amara, you write a very spiritually focused blog. Yes, I do, and I hear you. I'm obviously not anti-spiritual, but in the many years of writing this spiritually focused blog and working closely with people, I've seen far too many of you devote decades to seeking spiritual breakthroughs while your basic life skills remain frozen at the level of a child or adolescent. You can pull back the veil. You can realize the sublime oneness. You can even experience genuine awakening, and still you'll default to the money stories your parents handed you, the way they fought, the way they motivated you through guilt or shame or silence. So check your own beliefs. Beliefs you may have absorbed from the spiritual frameworks you engage with. Check to see if you've got this backwards. The prevailing message out there is that if you raise your vibration high enough, if you clear enough chakras or do enough shadow work, your practical life problems will just dissolve. Spiritual openings can change your orientation, but they don't install new protocols. That's your job. I started deprogramming as a teenager. I didn't have a method. God, I didn't even have the internet. And I didn't call it deprogramming. I just noticed that the emotional patterns I'd inherited from my family made them miserable. And I didn't want to carry them forward and be miserable too. So I decided to do something about it. I began by replacing the starter pack my parents installed, not because I hated them, because it didn't work for me. I couldn't see that it would support me in being who I really am, which is not just the next generation of my parents' templates. It was slow and awkward, like learning to write with your non-dominant hand, but it got easier with practice and experimentation. And by my early 20s, I was clearly different, not better, not enlightened, but unmistakably more in command of myself than most people thought possible. I could regulate my emotions. I could ask for what I needed. I could handle money without drama. I could draw close and love people, and I could also walk away. At 35, I had a spontaneous spiritual awakening, a complete, irreversible shift in consciousness. And it wasn't easy. It was actually very weird. But unlike many, I didn't spiral. I didn't get lost in bliss or dissociation. I didn't leave my life behind to go chase the divine. Why? Because the foundation was already in place. The emotional and practical skills, the mental sobriety and radical self-honesty. These were already mine. And most people try to do this backwards. They seek the mystical experience first, imagining it will magically turn them into competent adults. But it doesn't work that way. Your parents gave you what I call the first pass, a kind of starter template for being human. They modeled how relationships work, how to handle emotions, how to motivate yourself, how to relate to money, to conflict, to intimacy, to self-worth. And that was never meant to be permanent. Never. It was just enough to get you going. The problem is, most people never initiate the second pass. They run their entire adult lives on childhood programming and wonder why they keep repeating the same relational patterns, the same financial struggles, the same avoidant strategies, the same boundary collapse. And here's the exciting reality. The second pass is your job. It's the conscious reprogramming of your system. It's how you parent yourself into the kind of adult you would have trusted and respected as a kid. And this isn't about reparenting your inner child, let's be clear. It's about becoming the competent adult that child never got to rely on. You don't need to psychoanalyze your upbringing for 10 years. You don't need to forgive or blame anyone. Your parents couldn't teach you what they didn't know. They couldn't give you what they didn't have. This isn't about them. It's simply time to identify what isn't working for you and replace it with something that does. So what are these childhood programs? Let me tell you, this stuff isn't hidden. It shows up in your patterns, in your tone, in your energy field. When I work with people, the first thing I perceive is their parents. I can hear how their parents spoke to them because they're still speaking that way to themselves. These aren't deeply buried artifacts from your childhood. People carry these models facing right out at the world. Pain and frustration are your signposts. Pain is when you keep crashing into the same wall. You swear it'll be different this time, but somehow you end up in the same place, the same situation again. You use your spiritual practice to program your inner GPS for peace, but you keep winding up at chaos. Frustration is more subtle. It's when you feel blocked, stuck, like you should be able to get there, but something invisible keeps dragging you back. And maybe you collapse under conflict. Maybe you can't ask for help without guilt or criticizing yourself for being weak. These aren't quirks, they're echoes. They're the first pass, still running the show. Here's what most people miss. When you remove faulty programming, you have to replace it with something that works. If your parents used shame to motivate you and you strip that out, you still need a way to motivate yourself. That's not a belief, it's a skill. It just doesn't appear because you've had an insight. Let me say that again. You can have insights all day long, and if you don't have a plan and dedicate to practice, they do not magically turn into skills. If you grew up in chaos, you need to learn how to create trust. That's a system. You don't inherit it, you build it. And you have to be willing to be bad at it for a while, especially when you're just beginning. It's like learning a language or an instrument. Skills are built, and at first you kind of stumble through them. So here are some of the things I consider foundational in the second pass. Boundary setting. Learn to define your edges without defaulting to attack or appeasement. Become your own best friend. Learn to be radically honest with yourself and still always have your own back. This is a big one. Emotional regulation. Learn to stay present with hard emotions instead of bypassing or blowing up. And how about money and resources in general? Learn how to handle your money and financial resources without guilt, chaos, or magical thinking. How about authentic communication? Learn to say no. Ask for what you need. Navigate rupture or conflict without regressing. How about becoming resilient to failure? This is a big one. Learn the very important skill of facing the risk of rejection and keep creating, keep reaching, keep being yourself anyway. And lastly, integration skills, because all of us here are spiritually focused and we need to learn to function well in both the practical and visionary realms without becoming fragmented. Now, none of these are personality traits. They're learnable, they're skills. And once you install these second pass programs and build your skill levels, they don't vanish when you get triggered. or when you wake up, they stay. And this might be controversial, but spirituality can actually block this work. Because when people have profound experiences, they often assume those experiences will translate into life competence. They won't. A heart opening won't teach you how to set a boundary. A crown chakra activation won't make you good with money. Realizing the divine in all won't actually help you navigate a conflict with your in-laws. It's seductive to believe that inner light will automatically resolve outer chaos, but that's not how systems work. And when the chaos persists, people double down, more practices, more workshops, more intensives. They're looking in the wrong direction. So here's the second pass challenge. In my experience, this is exciting work, not because it's easy, but because it's all yours. You're not stuck with the map you were given. You can redraw the territory consciously, system by system. Whatever your parents did or didn't teach you, whatever they could or couldn't give you, the second pass is your domain. It's where you become the adult you wish you had. Not by healing your inner child, but by becoming someone that child can finally rest with. So how do you actually rewire your system? Of course, there's no one-size-fits-all formula, but there is a pattern. And I've seen it work over and over again. I call it the second pass method. And it starts with something simple. You notice what's not working. That part of your life that keeps looping. The relationship dynamic, the money drama, the constant emotional shutdown. The part where you think, I should be past this by now. That's your signal. That's where to start looking. And once you see the pattern, trace it. Ask yourself, where did I learn this? How did the people around me handle this when I was growing up? Don't go digging for trauma. Just notice the modeling. And then this is crucial. You imagine something different. What would this area of your life look like if you handled it with actual maturity? What would it feel like to move through it with clarity instead of chaos? From there, find someone, real or imagined, who lives like that. Someone whose system is running clean in that domain. You don't have to become them, just learn from the structure they're using. And then you practice, not in your head, not in theory, in real time, in awkward conversations, in moments where your old pattern wants to hijack the scene. You pause and then you try something new. At first, it won't go smoothly, and that is fine. You're learning a new language. And one of the last things, don't just strip out the old programming, install the new one. Make sure there's something functional in its place, something that actually works under pressure. That's how this becomes who you are, not just something you understand intellectually. So this isn't about healing from the past, it's about building the future. You're not a character in someone else's story anymore. You're the author. And some people would rather keep trying to be rescued. This isn't for them. But if you're ready, really ready to become the adult version of yourself that's no longer ruled by inherited code, you'll find that the more human you become, the more spiritual depth you can hold without losing your balance. Not because you're transcending life, but because you're finally mastering it. So it's time to stop looking for spiritual solutions to practical problems. Take on the challenge of the second pass. Start parenting yourself into the person you were always meant to be. Next time someone asks you what you need, you don't need to freeze. Practice. Speak. Become the one who knows. If you're ready to move from insight to actual transformation, and you want the tools and support to rewrite the systems you live by, this is the work I do. You can start by joining my newsletter list, or if you're further along, explore the courses and private sessions. Clear mind, quiet power. No spiritual fluff, just the tools to become who you actually are. You'll find all the links below. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll talk again soon.